I'm so excited for you to hear this conversation with my new friend, Francie Jain, about her marketplace that connects businesses with coaches. I don't want to give anything else away. Here's my new friend, Francie. Welcome to Market Mavericks. I'm Matthew Eford. Join me as I speak with leaders who are redefining industries in every corner of the market. From startups to established businesses, we'll uncover the strategies, challenges, and insights that drive success. Get ready to be inspired by the Mavericks who are shaping the future of business. Welcome, everybody, to Market Mavericks. I'm your host, Matthew Eford, and I have my new friend with me, Francie Jain. I'm so excited to hear about Francie and the businesses that she's a part of and really the lessons that she's learned along the way from mistakes and successes. So, Francie, for those who don't know you, if you're introduce yourself and let us know kind of your business journey, like what's the business that you're a part of really right now? What's the main one?
Okay, got it. Yeah, so I am the founder of a B2B marketplace called Terawatt, and
Okay.
that basically it's a three-stakeholder marketplace. But basically, the way to understand it is Airbnb for executive coaching.
I love that. What
Yeah,
what a fantastic way. So, when did you start it?
yeah. So, well, actually, that's a crazy story. Are you ready for the long version?
Yeah, let's hit me with it.
Okay. Well, the original, what do you call it? If you have kids, sometimes you say to them, you were just a twinkle in my eye
Yeah.
during the,
Oh yeah.
whatever.
Oh yeah.
So the original seed, the original twinkle in the eye was in 2016, there was a presidential debate between Trump and Clinton, and there was an argument about who was doing more for the manufacturing workers who lost their jobs. And they were throwing numbers around, like millions of people had lost their jobs, and you hadn't done anything to help them. It was back and forth. And I was like, wait a minute, is that a real number?
Wow.
Had there really been millions of manufacturing workers who lost their jobs? And so I went down a whole rabbit hole to see if that was actually true, and it was. And from 2000 to 2016, a significant number of manufacturing workers have lost jobs. So there's not one quantified number, but it's
Sure.
somewhere in between 5 and 15 million people in the state.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. And when you're looking at it in 2016, that meant basically 1 million a year jobs gone away. And so my first thought was, wow, that's a lot of people. And then my second thought was, oh, well, what's the Yahoo of career change? There must be somebody doing this, because not only is this something impacting the manufacturing sector, but this is how America works.
Sure.
You know what I mean? It's boom bust, radical regeneration, or all the different things. And I thought, well, that seems so obvious. And usually when I have that thought, I'm number 3029 person who thinks it's a good idea. And so I couldn't find it. And I was like, oh, I'm not using the right keywords. And I finally was just like, wow, that's crazy. I can't believe that no one's doing something just to truly help people find the song in their heart for what they want to do.
Wow.
They're not they're not sort of selling their business information or making money on them in some weird way, but truly the whole purpose of the organization is to help them find what works for them. And so that was, I kept trying to find it. And there's one really terrible version that the US military uses. But at least they had something. It was super linear and boring and not interesting. It was a little, you plug in a few interests and it will come out with a career. So anyway, that's how it all started. And I kind of got obsessed with it. And I was like, that's crazy. How does that not exist? And then I think the reason I started being so viscerally affected by it is because I've switched careers many times.
Okay.
And that never scared me. I always just thought it was sort of a fun challenge. And so I worked in finance, I worked in fashion.
Okay. Those are two very different careers.
Yeah. And I've been an entrepreneur in a bunch of different ways. And so I guess it's just one of these things where it was sort of a value of mine where I felt I have seen over the years when I've done that, it terrifies people.
Sure.
But I felt it's not really that hard. But anyway, so I was thinking about how to do that and how to do it in a way that would be really interesting and sort of scalable and impact a lot of people. And it took me a while, actually. And that's one thing I would just say for the budding entrepreneurs of the world is that the beauty of what I'm doing now is that it's like values-based, but sometimes when you start with a values-based business, it takes a while to find a business model.
Sure. That's a
So
fantastic
that's
point.
the learning that I've had. So let's just say, so even that first version, I was working with my cousin even, and he's like an educational entrepreneur. And we were working through it, and I basically came up with, okay, it will be a community, and it'll be like kumbaya, and we'll help each other out. It'll be really affordable, because the whole point is like, if your career has gone away, it's not like you have much money to devote to this, but maybe there's a way we can like share leads, and like people help each other out and make it affordable.
Sure, a good community.
Yeah, just kind of a cool community where people, first of all, find others like them and realize it's not that scary, but also maybe, kind of like, I don't know, just peers helping each other along, I think is a little bit what I was envisioning. I mean, I'm not a coach. I'm not anything. I'm not an educator, right? I'm more just someone who just believes it shouldn't be that hard to switch careers. And as I was starting to do that, it wasn't really taking off. I always think that like these things I do are going to like go viral. It did not go viral. And so I thought, okay, well, what if I come up with a way that makes it more like sexy for people? And so as I was coming up with the community, I was going to be targeting 3 groups. One was these manufacturing workers.
Okay.
Oh, and just by the way, for everyone's edification, there was no like one way that the manufacturing jobs went away. It was like just-in-time manufacturing. It was outsourcing. It was, everything. It was like robotics. I mean, it was just like 1,000 reasons why things had gone away. So I just thought that's also really interesting, because you can't say it's like one definitive thing. Okay, so
you had your 3 groups. You had your three target groups. Right.
Thank you. So the one was manufacturing. The second was decommissioning military work, not workers, what would you call them? Career military people. And then the third was stay-at-home moms returning to the workforce.
Okay.
So every year there are 250,000 decommissioning military. And every year, this is a crazy number, 4 million women return to part-time and full-time work after their youngest kid goes to school.
Wow.
That was a hard number to come up with. So hopefully someone can create a few businesses with that. That was from the BLS, and I called them in Washington to confirm the number, but you have to do some math to get there. Anyway, so my vision was I'll get 10 moms, and we'll do a Zoom, and we can have a coach, and the coach can just tell me his or her rate, and we'll split it by like the 10 moms, and the moms don't have to leave their house. The kid can be there.
Sure.
They can be sleeping or awake, whatever. And then the coach gets their market rate, whatever they want to get paid, and it just gets split by the 10 people. And that way the 10 people have access to expertise from this coach.
Sure.
But it's not for an arm and a leg. Like you're getting, you're growing. And then you also have the community of those other 9 people. So I reached out to a coach and I told her the idea, and she said, "Oh, I would do that in a heartbeat." And so then I had like an epiphany. I was like, oh my goodness, this whole thing could be a marketplace, because like people need coaches, coaches need leads. I don't know content, which was like very clear. Like I didn't know anything about that. And I was like, perfect, because then all the content is off my plate.
Sure.
And then I can just be a matchmaker, which is like one of my like number one skills in life. And I got really excited about it. And so that took a while. And then on top of it, then I had to realize, no, I really want this to be a B2B marketplace.
Okay.
So we're selling to employers. And then, oh, by the way, once we do that, we have to change the name. Oh, and then of course, you got to change the URL, and so it's taken a long time actually to get where I am right now. So the little nugget was in 2016 and we're in 2025. But now I'm finally in a place where we're like selling.
Cool.
And we have branding down and all this stuff, but it really, I think that the key with being values oriented, where you're really like trying to solve a big problem, is having a long runway.
Yeah, no, that's what an incredible story, and kudos to you for your persistence, right? Because so many businesses don't ever get out of the idea stage. So many people have said, "Oh, I should do this," and they don't ever do anything with it, or they have a burden for something and they think, "Oh, well, somebody else will figure that out," or they just kind of move about their day. But you saw a need, you felt a burden, and you went for 10 years now, and you've fought through different iterations of it. You've had to make pivots along the way, and you've found a need in the marketplace. So talk to me about the specifics with the B2B. Okay, so why did you land on B2B? Give us some little bit more insights there.
Yeah. So, well, initially we were doing testing. We were actually finding people on Facebook, and I was paying coaches and offering group coaching for free.
Okay.
So the coaches got paid, and then people come for free. And we booked out a lot of those. And I was like, okay, people will attend these. And the coaches were happy because they were getting their rate. But then what I realized was it was actually quite hard to get people to pay.
Sure.
As an individual, because I kind of joke around about this, but I think it's really true. People will pay for, $200 jeans on Instagram, no problem. But if you ask them to pay $100 for something about their brain,
sure,
they're like not clear that's a good use of their money.
Yeah.
So, and because the other thing I realized is my whole career really has been about maybe gatekeepers or, B2B sales, in that I'm really, really comfortable making a pitch to someone whose job it is to listen to my pitch. I don't really know much about like consumers buying on Instagram and Facebook.
Sure.
And so I just felt like that just wasn't my wheelhouse. And so that was a big switch. And then the other reason was organizations have budgets. I mean, they have professional development budgets. They're likely not using it on coaching. Some may, but there's even a statistic from the Association for Training and Development that the average American worker has $1,200 allocated to them for training and development. But here's the other thing: the average American worker makes $50,000. So if you think about it as a percentage, of the person's salary, if you go to employees that make a higher salary, they should have a higher learning and development budget.
Yeah, and especially if it's not being utilized. But again, kudos to you for finding a way to get into organizations and do some group coaching, right? That it's okay. There's opportunity, I'm sure, to go from group coaching to one-on-one coaching if somebody wants additional, but that's a bigger investment. But this is a way for somebody to get into that kind of community, that kind of mastermind group that's very popular with CEOs. I'm a part of one myself.
Yeah.
But just that idea and investing in your people, I love that you're doing that.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. And so I'm just trying to think. Sorry, it's been a long day.
That's okay. So let me. I want to pull one more nugget out that I think is super, super valuable, that I've heard you say a few times, and I think you're being modest in the way that you're saying it. But one thing that I'm getting from you, Francie, is you understand what you're good at and what you're not good at. Yeah. And what I'm seeing you do, which I admire a lot, is you're pushing into the things that you know how to do and that you're good at doing, and that you're letting other people do the things that they're good at. And I think most entrepreneurs, myself included, have struggled with that for so long. And it keeps us from being more successful, right? That I will end up doing and spending time on something that is not the best use of my time, where I could outsource that I could bring out a trusted partner or another employee, or offload that and empower one of my existing employees to do that work, that I can then go do something that's best use of my time to grow the organization.
100%. And the thing I was going to say, that the reason I feel like more confident than maybe I have been in the past to say a lot of that is, when I was in business school, we had personal assessments. We had like Myers-Briggs assessment that first year of business school. And it's now, people don't love Myers-Briggs now, but I still think it's quite interesting for a personal assessment. And the thing that I learned, I didn't know about a lot of these things about myself, I didn't know at all. Like, so when I got the results, it like blew my mind. And the one that like really rocked my world is, if you look at Myers-Briggs, it's almost like a scale.
Yeah.
And like, you're like here, and you might be this way or this way. And it shows, and the point is like, listen, like on any given day, you might change a little bit. It's not hard and fast. But so like two of them, I always forget what they were, but two of them were like negligible. It's like no big deal. And one, I was a little bit more of a feeler than a thinker, which I always think is funny. At business school, I was the only feeler in my section, so they made me talk in front of the group. And then the one that like blew my mind was that I was literally off the charts extrovert. Like there was like no introversion side to it. And I was shocked because I'm not the person who will walk into a crowded room and say hi to everyone and like talk everyone up. Like I often feel shy in rooms like that. And but what I learned is that I'm just very, very motivated by relationships.
Cool.
And that relationships are like my number one. And I also realized that a lot with my husband, and he's like all about numbers. Okay. And I'm like, so we always have these arguments where I'm like, we can't do that because what about that relationship with so-and-so? Like, I already spent 3 months talking to them about it.
Yeah, sure.
So big fights about that. And that really helped me then when different things were popping with the business where I was able just to say, okay, like I already know like being a matchmaker, and I already had this career in alternative asset raising. And like, I knew that was like I was good at it.
Okay.
And I felt like, and again, it's just like the switching jobs thing. Like a lot of people, it seems so easy to me, but for a lot of people that wasn't attractive or easy or whatever. And so I just felt like, God, I mean, if it's easy for me and I enjoy it and I want to get better at it, then that's to me, like adult, the concepts of pedagogy, right? If you want to get better, you should keep doing it. And that's a good enough driver. And so, and I think the one thing that we'll say though, that's frustrating, I think being an entrepreneur is like, let's say you know you're not good at something and you have to decide whether to spend money on it. That makes me crazy. Because like SEO or social media or all these things. And I think like my takeaway is if you're not good at it and you're on limited budget, I think you can just table it for a little while.
Sure.
That's my theory.
Yeah, no, I think that's fantastic. I think that's an excellent piece of advice. So Francie, talk about your organization. Like what's the structure now, right? I mean, you started with this idea back in 2016. You've started multiple businesses, but this one that we're referencing, and specifically Terawatt, talk to me about like what's the development stages looked like now that you're into actually selling to businesses, you're doing this B2B, you're creating the culture of connecting employees and leaders within an organization to coaches to help grow them. What's the stages been like of adding employees, building your infrastructure?
Yeah. So we're a marketplace, right? So much is like connecting people. And one side that's really been cool that again, like this is like the one like relationship I have to virality. I would not call it viral, but like semi-viral, in that all the coaches on our platform come through other coaches.
Cool.
So coaches just recommend
really cool.
that. And so it's awesome because we don't have to do any marketing because coaches trust us, and then they mention us, what we're doing to other coaches. So that part's been great. And I think that happened because as I developed the offering for coaches, I was running it by my friends from college. A lot of them are coaches, and saying things like, would you do this? What do you think about this? What do you think about this? What do you think about this? And so I basically built it around a few people who are giving me advice. And then, shocker, that works for everyone. It turns out when you treat people well and you build respectful systems. So that, I think that like semi-virality of the coaches was a direct result of really listening to coaches and not trying to like dominate them. So one of the things with our competitors is that we're a marketplace, but most people in the coaching space have a services business, meaning they pay a coach a certain rate and then they charge a high rate to the end user, and then they make the spread. So we're just a marketplace, meaning we just make a commission. So we don't have any incentive to underpay coaches. We are basically aligned with coaches.
Cool.
So the way we set it up is that we say to the coach, here's a problem someone's having, please send us a proposal. And then we add 15% on top of their proposal and send it to the person who's receiving the proposals. The coaches love that because they don't have to think about it. They just do what works for them. And they either get the proposal or they don't. But no one's telling them how to run their business, and they can change their pricing every day of the week, every hour.
Sure.
They might be busy one time, or other time, maybe they're looking for work, or maybe they want to get into this new space where the proposal coming from. So that side, I think, has been like really, really valuable. And I'm really glad I stuck to my guns about, like, I had to do a lot of pushback with lawyers. Everyone wants to use the legal boilerplate for all this crap.
Sure.
And like, I spent a lot of time changing contracts so that it was like really just a revenue share agreement and not me taking every possible benefit.
Yeah. No, I think that's fantastic. And again, just kudos to you. When you're building it with your customer in mind. Part of the marketplace is not just the businesses that you're working with. It's also the coaches. That if you just
Right.
build it to be beneficial to the businesses, you're going to miss out on the coaches standpoint. And obviously what you've done is you've created an environment that coaches are willing to, that net promoter, one of the businesses I have, we use net
exactly.
promoters, right? It's that idea. They're a raving fan. That they are actually promoting your business to their friends and colleagues, and they're saying,
Right.
"Hey, I like this. It works for me. Come and be a part of this." So
Exactly.
I love that you've done that,
Exactly.
and that you build it that way with the customer in mind, instead of just saying, "I have a solution. I'm going to make it work. This is what's going to happen," and go to market and say, "Market, I have the solution. Now change to what the solution is." Instead, you said, "No, I feel like this is a need. Now let me adapt it to what the market needs, and then let's take it to market."
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And also at that same time, I will say that it is worthwhile spending a fair bit of time looking at the philosophy and the theories around your business structure. So there's not a ton written about marketplaces, but there's enough.
Okay.
And that was really helpful because I haven't been thinking about marketplaces since I was 3, but some people have. But it is really valuable. So like some of the advice from these books was like, make the commission as low as possible, because then you prevent people from undercutting you. So like that's why we went with the 15%, because that's pretty low for a lot of these marketplace rates.
Sure.
The other one was, the coaches don't pay anything until they get paid. So we do, everything we do for them, putting them on our website, doing background checks, all this stuff, photographs. Sometimes we send videographers to their houses. All of that we pay for, because I want it to be a situation where there's no reason for them to leave our website.
Sure.
Because one of the things with marketplaces is like, to scale, you need to like just keep increasing. If you like have someone dropping off every time you add someone, then you kind of like, doesn't work. So of course, people wanted me to like charge like a SaaS subscription, to have some money coming in. But I just started to realize that these coaches, as solopreneurs, have a gazillion people knocking down their door trying to get them to pay them $12, $30 every month. I mean, it's like I think they're so annoyed by that, and it's actually
death by 1,000 cuts. Yeah,
exactly. And like people are always so tickled because when I'm telling them all the stuff we do and how it works, like, this is great. And then they have this face and they're like, how much is this going to cost me? And then I say, oh, zero. And I'm like, I'm not trying to build it up at all. Like, I'm just, we just want you to stay forever, and hopefully unless you become Tony Robbins, like my joke is like, unless our branding's like bringing you down, like hopefully you just stay. And so most people are like, yeah, there's no downside. And a few people said to me, I'm like, thank you. That's what I was kind of going for. So that was the coaching side. The sales side, I don't think I've crossed the finish line yet, but one thing I did just do this fall was really, really focus in on like one vertical.
Okay.
And I think that's going to be really helpful. And that's definitely like, a startup, like foundational piece of advice. And it really was scary for me, actually, because I was saying to people like, oh my God, wait, I have to change the homepage. I have to like be very restrictive about who I say we're for. And everyone's like, yes, that's how it works. I'm like, no, I can't. It's too scary. But then I finally realized, but then there's a more theory to that, which is that the more specific you get, the more that people can make connections and like connect you to others and understand who you're actually for. And then you get more creative because you have all these parameters. And so right now, we decided in the fall to do healthcare organizations.
Okay.
So on our website and on LinkedIn stuff, you'll see it's like the healthcare organizations that we work for, nurses, doctors. And the reason is we had one client that was like a group of surgeons at a hospital, and they went really, really well. And then one of our coaches has incredible research about a case study at a healthcare system and how it brought down turnover, his group coaching,
Nice.
his content brought down. Like this incredible case study. And so as I was thinking more and more about these two things and talking to people, my big takeaway was, okay, these are highly educated people in healthcare whose employers believe in professional development because they have to be accredited or, pass regulatory, whatever you call that, pass hurdles. But they have very, very, very little management training. So while they're definitely getting training about bedside manner and how to work with patients, there's almost no training about how to work with your colleagues.
I love that.
And I was like, wow. And for me, what was just so crazy is like, I don't know, an organization like Kraft is just full of people learning management techniques. I would bet that's like, some of these companies are just learning constantly about how to be a better manager, how to be a better boss, all that stuff, manage up, manage down. But it's like zero. And meanwhile, all these people, by the way, have been in science background their whole life. And it's all just been about getting the highest grade. And so what happens then when you have a conflict with another human who also sees the world the same way, like who's going to resolve that conflict?
Sure.
And I think what it leads to is potentially toxicity and or people avoiding, which is not healthy behavior.
Yeah, neither of them are healthy in a team.
Right. And then it's even more complicated at a hospital because you have the nurses. The nurses in the operating theater, the nurses respond maybe to there's a hierarchy among doctors and nurses, certainly. But when you're outside of an operation, how are you supposed to figure out who's right and who's wrong when no one responds to the other one? There's no police officer, for lack of a better word. There's no rule setter. And even the admin people don't really tell the doctors and the nurses what to do. It's like everyone's sort of operating, no pun intended, independently.
Sure.
In the hospital. Yeah. And so anyway, it just felt like there's a lot of opportunity, and my eyes were really open to that group of doctors that we worked with. And I'd say the big challenge now is trying to figure out who's the right person to have the conversation with, who's going to be feeling. And so, and then the other thing we're focusing on is like the pain point, which is turnover.
Okay. So how is you're saying that group coaching, which makes complete sense, but what do you have any kind of anecdotal evidence that shows that group coaching decreases turnover? Because obviously anyone who knows the healthcare space, especially in the mid-level nursing, middle management in the hospital system, there's a huge vacancy across the nation in that. Yeah. So obviously that's something you're working to, but tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So that one case study, this one coach of mine has, actually his father developed a sequence of coaching and then he further improved on it. So it's really been around 50, 60 years, called Opposite Strengths. His content was used at a healthcare system called Poudre Valley in Colorado.
Okay.
Poudre Valley healthcare system. And they started with a 24% voluntary employee turnover rate across the hospital. Wow. And they're worried. And I think at the time, or even maybe now, 20% is kind of average turnover for hospitals, or maybe it's higher, but last time I looked, it's about 20. So at the time, they're probably thinking, we're above average. This is a problem. We're in Colorado. It's hard to get people to move here. We need to reduce this. So they created top to bottom opt-in group coaching using this one content that created a unified language. Okay. So everyone was able to kind of use the same terminology and start to understand what people are talking about and diffuse conflict and create collegiality and stuff like that. And so every year that they used it, the organization was able to reduce the voluntary turnover by 1% to 2%.
Wow.
And that became, and then that compounds, right? So it started 24, then it's down 1 to 2, 1 to 2. After 8 years or 9 years, they got to 4% turnover, which is effectively zero.
Just to clarify, you said 4, 1, 2, 3, 4%.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So here's when I first heard that, I was like, yay, 4%. But here's the thing. So then, I don't know and then he talked to the CEO. So Dr. Thomas had the CEO of Poudre Valley, and the Poudre Valley CEO said, well, actually, what's really interesting is the difference between 24% turnover and 4% turnover is $33 million. So every year they're saving $30 million. And I think, and that when I heard that, I just fell off my chair, because it was a lot of employees. It was maybe like 4,000 people at Poudre Valley. This was being run. So it all kind of adds up. So the larger the organization, the bigger the dollar.
Sure. But turnover is not shown on your P&L, right? I mean, it's really difficult to find the bottom line impact for a small business owner that's listening to this. Turnover, I mean, if let's take it down to the practical outside of your organization. If you're not investing in your team, engaging with your staff, and helping them grow, this is such a valuable insight into your bottom line's being hurt because you're losing people. So your employee morale's down. The inefficiency of retraining somebody, the cost of rehiring somebody, getting them up to speed, the inefficiency it creates in your organization, the customers that you lose that love the employee that left, all the things that affect your bottom line are super, super impactful. So that is fascinating, saving over $30 million.
It's not really.
Hospital system. I mean,
that's crazy. And then there's more, like, I'm trying to think some of the other things that have come up, but like, then I just found an article in JAMA. And it was saying that they did one of those like surveys where they, bring together a bunch of different like information, like other surveys. It's like, I forget what it's called, but it's like they sort of roll up all the surveys, and then they had almost like 300,000 nurses. And they found that there was a correlation between nurse burnout and, negative experience of a patient.
Wow.
And more things like that, and it was related to like burn, all these different things and turnover. And I think the point is, what we're starting to realize is that professional development is a form of supporting and growing your employee base.
Sure.
And it doesn't really have many downsides, and it's not that expensive.
Cool.
And so, but I was also thinking about what you're saying about the income statement and the balance sheet, how it doesn't, unless you like run this, unless you start to like look at this, it would be hard to figure out exactly what the numbers are. But I think what you can look at is, well, especially for healthcare, is temporary workers.
Yeah.
Headhunters. But then
overtime.
Right. And or also sick day. Then you can use other cool things like sick days or engagement scores, things. There are other metrics you can test to see what the impact is. And then all at the same time, what's so cool about this is like one of the big like fights that baby boomers and Gen Z have in the workforce is that the Gen Z people expect employers to like pay for their professional development. Like, and the baby boomers like, screw you, like do it on your own time. I mean, like, that's not my job. And because I'm Gen X, and that was definitely the perspective when I joined the workforce. It was like, oh, you want to learn German? Okay, do it on the weekends, or learn Excel.
Yeah, do it on your own time. Yeah.
It wasn't, and like, by the way, I'm not paying for that. But now it's like the opposite. And so what's funny is the baby boomer perspective when I was younger was, why would I do that? Why would I pay money for someone to become more valuable? They're just going to leave. And it was this like thought of like, well, that would just be dumb money to sort of throw at a problem, and then they wouldn't be loyal. But the opposite is actually found to be true. That the more that you support the professional development of your employees, the longer they stay.
Wow.
And the more they don't want to leave, because it's hard to find that. It's hard to replicate that.
Sure.
And so I think that like we're now in this time where like there's a lot of really interesting like human capital research that's out there that people just haven't really put together.
I love that. So Francie, talk to me about you as a CEO, as an entrepreneur. How have you leveraged mentorship for yourself? I mean, you're providing this great resource for employees to be mentored, for leaders to be mentored, for coaches to connect with clients, this marketplace that you've created. But you as a leader, you as a CEO, as a founder, how are you leveraging mentorship in your life?
Oh my God. So that's a great question. I do not have a great answer. I read a lot of books.
Okay.
I'm reading a book. The woman I just met on a podcast, it's called Shine the Spotlight on You. It's about how to do like a personal brand building.
Nice.
I read a lot. I've joined a bunch of these like networking groups, which I think are really interesting.
Okay.
And you have a lot of interesting conversations, but it's a little bit like speed dating.
Yeah.
It's not exactly mentorship, but it could turn into that. Weirdly, I feel like the coaches on the platform mentor me. I get a lot of free coaching.
Just nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, they love to give me feedback, and which is great because I love to take it. Because actually, I learned from one of them who's like a psychology PhD that like the way to outperform your talent is to constantly listen to feedback and seek out feedback.
Yeah.
And so I try to do that whenever possible. But yeah, that's a really good question. In fact, I was just saying to someone the other day that they should start a business in that because everyone has been trying to crack that code, mentorship, and no one can figure out how to do it. Like my fantasy 100% for my whole life has been who's going to be like, my mentor that makes my life really awesome and shows me the way. And I haven't really had anyone like that. They've been like good bosses at different times.
Okay.
But I think it's more like I just try to keep to my North Star, whatever I'm trying to do, and try to take the ego out of it.
Sure.
But
yeah, I like that. And I like the opportunity that you brought up about the books, right? That's actually my next question is about books. I'm an avid reader myself, but this idea of you're engaging with somebody's expertise that they've spent years, decades, at least an intentional amount of time putting together, and you're expediting your learning curve by getting their insights. I am a part of a mastermind group that I've been very thankful for. I live in Atlanta, or just outside of Atlanta, Georgia. And we have a cohort of CEOs that meets together. It's almost 100 now. And we meet together once a month in smaller groups. And then once a quarter, we come together as a large group. And we do issue processing. We go through this idea of how can I make you better? And we're not in competing businesses, right? So it's not like I'm sharing a trade secret that you're going to go hurt my business, but it's, okay, so I'm in a home service business and there's 3 other home service business people in my small group, but then there's 5 others that have nothing to do with home services. And I'll bring up an issue. And what's really cool is in that meeting, in that time at the Institute, I'll bring up and we go through what's called issue processing. We'll walk through that issue and then everybody will give me feedback. And what's really cool is they give it from their point of perspective. Right? They're asking me questions from their point of perspective, and then they give me feedback from their point. And sometimes I'm like, nah, I'm not doing that. But a lot of times it's like, oh, wow, I never thought about that. I completely had a blinder on. I completely had a huge blind spot. I never would have thought to ask that question. I never would have thought to do it that way or to have that kind of conversation with this person, this client, this employee, whatever it is. I never would have thought to go into this venue of my business. It's just, for what it's worth, that's helped me a lot as a business owner. I don't know what kind of groups are around you, but I know there's some that are online. So let's get back to the book. So you referenced the book there. As an avid reader, what's something that you've read recently, besides the one that you just shared, that has really impacted you as a leader, that you would say, hey, if I could get this in the hand of every CEO, I would love to get this book there?
Yeah, let me get it. It's right here. It's
please go ahead.
I'm obsessed with it. Okay, this is the all-time best book. It's called Turn the Ship Around.
Okay. I see all of your marks on it. For those who are just listening and not watching, she's got tons of marks on it.
So this guy, I'm not being paid. This guy who wrote it, he was a nuclear submarine captain in the Navy.
Wow.
And when he first got to the ship, the way it functioned, and really for all of the naval captains and submarines, the way it functions is that like basically every single thing that happens on the submarine has to go through the captain. So they'd be like, hey, is it okay if I change this screw?
Wow.
Very
wow. Talk about a bottleneck.
Yeah, right. And he was like, there's got to be a better way. This is absurd. And so basically he flipped it and they came up with all these different processes. And But ultimately, instead of like asking for permission, it was like, sir, I intend to replace this screw. And here's the reason why, and here's the background. And then he would say, okay, that's fine, go and do it. And it was, the idea was like making the action person be the expert, as opposed to expecting the general to be the expert. But it like flowed throughout all these other areas. And one of the things he said is like the metric of what was success was how many people got promoted on the ship.
Wow.
And I always think about that, because I always think like, and I think about that baby boomer perspective I was kind of making fun of earlier, which is like, I just want to hold on to everyone and underpay them and they'll never leave. And the thing is, people leave, people move on and they grow. And I think the more that you can embrace like the alumni component of your business or people you worked with, like the better will this all be, because you just can't control what other people do.
I love that.
And so anyway, those are like a few of the insights from this, but like I could read this book like every year, like, and like learn so much. I just think he's kind of a genius.
I love it. I'll definitely make sure we put that in the show notes.
Yeah.
So Francie, I appreciate your time. You've been super generous with it. We're coming up to the end of our time, and there's a couple of questions I love to kind of close on. So number one, if you could focus on a commitment for this year, right? We love this idea of around Market Mavericks. Instead of just having a goal, right? A goal seems kind of more flippant. Like, I didn't make the goal, I didn't hit the goal, but a commitment is more of, I'm committed to doing this. So tell me, what is a commitment that you have in this new year with Terawatt? What's a commitment you have?
Yeah. So I think the key is to create a repeatable process for new client generation.
Cool.
And because in the past it's been very haphazard and organic, which is super cool. It was happening. It was so exciting, but that's just not really a strategy.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. I need to be able to turn it up or turn it down, like theoretically. Right. And so that's kind of really my goal right now. And I think, focusing on one vertical is really helpful for that. I have zero experience in healthcare, but, I think if you've got a good story and a good solution, that's a good value for people, I think I should be able to do something good there. So
I love that. Yeah, that's cool. I love that. What a great commitment. Okay. Last thing. What's a piece of advice you wish you would have had 10 years ago? So think back to younger Francie. What's a piece of advice you wish that she would have had?
Oh, I know. I think every person, when they go into a new job, should sit down with their boss and have a piece of paper that says, what does success look like?
I love that.
Because what happens is people's memories change, things change in the business, and you forget where you were when you started. And I had this one job where I thought I was doing a great job, but the goalposts were kind of being changed. But I think if I'd had this piece of paper and success looks like X, Y, and Z, and if I hit X, Y, and Z, then like we should all be happy and whatever, get a bonus, whatever the things are. But like that was never there. And like I think everyone had in their mind their own idea, definition of success, and just wasn't explicit. And so I think that like that would really save a lot of like heartache on both sides.
I love that. That is a fantastic piece of advice, and what a great way for us to end this wonderful conversation. Well, Francie, thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for your generosity there. If somebody wants to get connected to coaching, if they hear this as a professional coach, somebody who's a counselor that wants to get involved on that side, or if they have a business place and they say, hey, I want to bring this to my organization, how do they get connected to you?
Yeah. So Terawatt.co is our website, and there's a way to reach out to me there. Also, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, and it's just Francie Jain. So FRANCIE, then Jain, JAIN. Those are probably the two best ways. But, I'm like, we read all the emails and everything. Sure. So it doesn't go into a black hole if you send.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Yeah. Well, I will definitely make sure those are in the show notes. Thank you again, Francie, for sharing. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today on Market Mavericks. We'll see you soon. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Market Mavericks. We hope you're walking away inspired and ready to take your own adventure to the next level. Don't forget to follow the show to keep up with our latest episodes. And if you enjoyed today's conversation, make sure to subscribe, share it with others who could benefit. And hey, if you know a market maverick who has a story that needs to be heard, please drop their name in the comments. We would love to bring their insights to the show. Until next time, keep pushing boundaries and leading with purpose.